This is going to be the vlog about Never Alone. Visually, the game is pretty stunning. The game takes place presumably in Alaska and follows the tale of Nuna and her Arctic fox companion. The game itself is a side-scrolling, storytelling, puzzle platformer game, and there are a lot of visual cues that help with essentially telling the player what to do. For instance, the wind gust in either forward or backward, and depending on which one appears on the screen, a different effect will come from interacting with it. Furthermore, there are parts of the game's visuals, such as the spirits, that really add to the magic circle of the game. The spirits are part of the Alaskan tribe's cultures, and I feel that not only seeing the spirits, but having to rely on them heavily during the game cements the spirits as an important part of the game, but also then to the Alaskan cultures from which they derive. The game's audio is sounds of the environment, like the crunching of shoes or paws against the snow, or there's wind gusts, fox noises, etc., the polar bear. Some of the sounds are very important to actual quote unquote gameplay, like before a gust of wind comes, you hear it. Therefore, you can take the adequate measure to negate the effects of the blizzard slowing down your progress. However, the most important part of the audio is the man telling the story of Nuna. He's the guide in a sense, because the narrator tells the player where Nuna is currently in her quest, and he also tells the story of the Alaskan tribe from which the story of Nuna sort of comes from. The game is as much a game as it is an introduction to the cultures of some of the Alaskan tribes, and the game has a number of ways in order to show us that, such as the insights that the player unlocks as they progress in the game. These insights are all about Alaskan culture and range across a number of topics like trapping to spirits, etc. However, they all give the player information about the player and story that they are currently playing through. One of the more impactful parts of the game was one of the Alaskan tribe members said that they are not a museum but a living people and a living culture. And I heard this quote before I started to play the game. Therefore, my mindset going in was not that this is another game, but rather this is a part of a person's, a culture's, and a people's history, and I should and need to respect that. This point also brings up the thought about what other people's cultures have media used before in a disrespectful way. I think that this game brings up the issues of using another people's culture and identity for profit. In class, we talked about a sort of identity tourism and how that can be very bad. This game makes sure you know that that is not what's happening here. Rather, the player is learning about the indigenous people of a different area and what their culture and stories are all about. Although I feel like this is a small glimpse about life, completely different to our own, it is an important one, and we must respect other people's cultures and ways of life. A lot of times we think that we think of or we hear about these tribes and we think that they're in the past, or like they're like, oh, that's is in the 1800s or whatever. But I think we often neglect that these people are still alive, right? And their cultures are still going, and they still have their traditions and ways of life. It's just that we're so far removed from that that it's sort of blinded us from the truth that they're still there. And like she said, they're not museums, right? They're still going on. They have a history that's just as important as our own. A pretty interesting aspect about the game that's related to me is that it might seem kind of far fetched, but it's about my inheritance. I am one quarter Native American, and my grandmother was 100% Native American. And yet, I know almost nothing about the tribe from which I come, or from which my grandmother comes from. Never Alone is about the story of Alaskan people, and as I started to play the game, I couldn't help but wonder what the traditions and stories of my people that I haven't heard are. So yeah, that was just like kind of in my mind. The game mechanics require the player to navigate the terrain and obstacles that come with it, switching back and forth from the Alaskan girl Nuna and the Arctic fox. Both characters have unique skill sets and also unique interactions with the environment. For instance, the spirits are guided by the fox, and oftentimes the player must first use the fox to climb walls or to jump on spirits before Nuna is allowed to proceed in the game. Also, Nuna has the ability to move objects and to throw her bola, which comes handy later in the game. I've seen this type of back and forth mechanic in games like there's certain Zelda titles that do this. However, I feel like this game does it much better. Furthermore, there's a lot more meaning to switching back and forth between the Fox and Nuna, whereas other games, it's just a mechanic that aids in fun. However, in Never Alone, this sort of back and forth is told by the Alaskan tribes to be rooted in real life and reality. In some of the insight videos, the Alaskan tribes tell that the spirits help them in all parts of their life all the time. Whether that be a bird helping you home, the sea giving you resources, or the animals giving themselves in order for the people to move on. I feel that the story really adds another sense of purpose to using the two characters interchangeably to proceed through the game. The people need the animals in order to continue, and they show respect to the animals for that. And I think that the sort of metaphor that here is, Nuna relies on the fox. The fox is her companion, and that, like I said, it was kind of rooted in real life, where the Alaskan people know they need the animals, but they also need the land. And the insight videos, in the insight videos rather, the tribe members talk about a lot about their relationship with the land. I forget the word, like sila, I think, and the weather and the atmosphere, and this sort of spirituality that comes from nature. And I think the game does a really good job at doing that. The design of the spirits, the design of the weather and the wind, the background, all these sorts of things. I think really like the sum is greater than the parts in the sense where they all sort of come together to create like a really unique game and a really unique atmosphere that I think is sort of rooted in the Alaskan reality. I think it's hard to like add the spirituality to the game, obviously, but I think like the essence of what the tribe members like, what their culture and what tradition are, like the game did as much as it could to like help you understand that. And the insight videos with the different elders, like there's a video of him like drumming. There's an insight video of the elder drumming, and then like in the game, like you find a drum, and like there's a the little people are like drumming. So there's like things that happen in the game. There's like a direct correlation or direct. There's like a direct video that like will explain to you then what's going on. There's videos about the Arctic fox, an example. So I think overall it's like a really special game that like is a really good insight into like other people's cultures.